I actually still think The Twilight Zone is arguably one of the greatest shows of all time. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope you guys are having a great day. We're going to talk about one of the best episodes ever. I don't know if it's the best episode ever, but we are going to talk about I Am the Night, Color Me Black. It's a Twilight episode. It's one of the later Twilight episodes, season 5, episode 13, I believe. This is such a unique episode. Granted, I mean, the Twilight Zone's always been unique. Every single episode's just different. And that's one of the things I like about the Twilight Zone in general is the atmosphere. It is dated. Like, people are going to say it's dated. It's the 50s. It's black and white, yada, yada, yada. But I think that's what makes it so good. It's the charm of it. The atmosphere and the setup of each episode makes it so good. And that's what I really like about the Twilight Zone. That's why I decided to do videos of the Twilight Zone. I don't know how many videos I'm going to do, but I'm going to do a lot. And with that being said, let's start talking about a little bit of this episode. First thing I have to say is, of course, we lead off with arguably one of the best intros to any TV show ever.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination.
So we start off with the sheriff and his wife in the bedroom. Not that kind of way. The sheriff is actually getting his tie all fixed and everything. The sheriff's name is Charlie, and he has his wife Ellen. And Ellen wakes up and she's like, "What time is it? Why is it so dark out? What time is it?" And Charlie says, "I have no idea. My watch is broken. Probably 3 or 4 in the morning, go back to sleep." And that really just sets the tone of the darkness in the sky. Like, why is the sky so black? Why is this so dark? Like, all these questions. And you as the watcher is also like, why is this happening then? Like, immediately, like, we already know the title, but we don't know why. They kind of scoot around that pretty quickly. And they go right to talking about the hanging that's supposed to happen at 9:30 that morning. His wife, Ellen, seems like she just doesn't really care about this man being killed. It actually plays a pretty big role in the rest of this episode. People just not really caring about the death of this man. And I think that's such an important thing to know about. Is Charlie even brings it up that everyone's just a bunch of blood gawkers. That all they care about is seeing this man die. Nothing else. And you can really see the effect of this tone on him. Nobody else. His wife doesn't even care that this man is going to get killed, getting hung. Like, this is like medieval times. Granted, this is the 1950s, but still, like, wow, this is such a dated way to execute somebody, and that's what they're going to do. And it plays a really big role into the rest of this episode.
How does he like his eggs?
Edible.
They cut to the next scene and it opens up at 7:30 in the morning. The clock tower strikes 7:30 in the morning, and this is where you have the deputy, Pierce, and Sheriff Charlie. And Deputy Pierce immediately brings up how it's so dark outside. He brings up how it's super dark, and he even mentions it to the sheriff, and the sheriff understands that it's dark and so black out. What is going on? But the sheriff also kind of ignores it because he's so stressed about what is going on. He even checks his watch to realize, wow, it's 7:30 in the morning. Why is it still blackout? I understand that logic. Like, I understand, like, if you're gonna execute a man, you're like, why? You're not really thinking about that part too much. You're taking a man's life. He realizes that. That's when we actually start cutting to the GOAT, Rod Sterling. And Rod Sterling opens up by telling us the monologue.
On the morning of an execution. As a matter of fact, it's 7:30 in the morning. Logic and natural laws dictate that at this hour there should be daylight. It is a simple rule of physical science that the sun should rise at a certain moment and supersede the darkness. But at this given moment, Sheriff Charlie Koch, a deputy named Pierce, a condemned man named Jagger, and a small, inconsequential village will shortly find out that there are causes and effects that have no precedent. Such is usually the case in the Twilight Zone.
Why this town is dark. He doesn't tell us why, but he tells us the town is dark and a man is about to get hung. Obviously, with that correlation, they're going to be the same thing. There's a result of why this is happening. Then we meet the news editor, Colby, and he, as soon as he comes in, he's just immediately kind of gives me I actually thought he was like the lawyer. On the first watch, I thought he was like a lawyer or something. So then the second watch, I had to do subtitles so I can truly understand this, so I can write out the script. He mentions how there is a godly woman that believes it's the end of times. That's why it's dark out. But he also mentions that it's only just their town that has this darkness over it, or this blackness, whichever way you want to prefer to say it. That is what's lingering over just their town. And Deputy Pierce did mention earlier that he was afraid of it. It weirded him out. But he immediately changed his focus and so focused on the death of this inmate, Jagger, that he actually bullies him and he teases him. Colby immediately starts calling him out about it, about hurting animals and harassing people, like doing these small things that Pierce actually has done in the past in his younger youth. That does he deserve the same punishment then? And of course, Pierce gets really mad about it. And it really shows a good sign, I think, in this episode where Pierce might have actually had something to do with this pretty quickly. Because he even asks Colby, what are you trying to say? And Colby's like, nothing. I ain't trying to say anything, dog. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. But I think it's a really good sign to show that the people who we think are good, we expect to be good, are sometimes just innately bad people. It's the wolf in sheep clothing kind of thing. We expect Deputy Pierce to be good because he's a police officer. Most of the time, you expect police officers to be good. Deputy Pierce is actually one of them that is not good. But because he's an officer, you innately are going to expect him to be good. And guess what? He's not. Colby then asks Sheriff Charlie if he thinks Jagger is innocent. Sheriff Charlie just says it's between the jury and God himself. I have no say in it. And that's a really strong thing to say because clearly Charlie doesn't think Charlie thinks he's innocent. I think Charlie truly believes he's innocent. And I think that just speaks volumes of this episode and just the innate hate of creatures, of human nature in this. And this is where Colby jokes and makes a little joke about God himself in the moment, that everyone has to, fall on God. It's always God's responsibility, which kind of makes sense. Like at the end of the day, yes, I understand that. Now I'm not going to talk deeply about it. Yes, I understand what Colby's saying, and I understand what Sheriff Charlie is saying about it. Colby also brings up the attempted murder on Jagger, the murderer who tried to kill Jagger, and it seems very convenient that Pierce is the only one who saw it. I thought that was a very interesting little pull there, that Pierce is the only one that actually saw this whole interaction going about. And I think that was a really interesting thing. I thought it was very fun. This is where Pierce gets really upset and actually looks at Colby and is like, what are you trying to say? Why are you accusing me for? And I thought this was a very interesting reason why this guy is black. Evilness, I should say, in humans is why I thought immediately that's why this guy is black. Is that very clear? We'll find out later, but it's such a deep thing because you immediately figure out that there is just bad people. For example, immediately, Charlie's wife immediately just points and blames and laughs at this man that's about to get hung. But Charlie himself is getting upset because he's getting made fun of. And that alone really just speaks to volumes, evil and hate in this town alone. That's why I'm like, well, that's probably why they have the blackness over the town already, because it's spreading. Its hate is spreading. So Colby goes in to talk to Jagger. Now Jagger is a balding white man, and that's actually important in this episode because soon we'll have reveal of a black reverend. And that is actually a pretty important role in this. And it actually appeals more on the layers of what's going on in this story. And Jagger and Colby talk for a few moments, and Colby really brings in talking to somebody. Jagger doesn't want to talk to anybody, not even God himself. And he talks about the importance of punishment. Are you still a good man if you kill somebody, even if it's protecting somebody else? People still look at you as a bad man for murdering someone, even if you think you're doing the right thing by protecting someone else by taking another life. It's a very interesting thing. Jagger refers to us as animals. If a man kills somebody, he is looked like an animal, not a human being. He's an animal. He's willing to do this. And even Colby actually kind of agrees with this sentiment that we as humans instinctively will look at somebody and think they are a bad person because they did this. And that's a very true thing. I mean, even if we look on the news or whatever today and we see a local man killed this man, even if we don't know why he did it, we all just assume this is a bad man. Now, am I sitting here advocating for murder? No, because I'm like, well, you should get punished for being a murderer. In this stance, we'll find out why shortly. So it's 9 o'clock and all the townsfolk show up. And the first thing they bring up is how dark it is still at 9 o'clock in the morning. The sheriff and deputy show up, and of course they're setting up the rope and everything. Now, deputy and sheriff are not. The other police officers are. Deputy Pierce mentions that I'd attend to him. about the rope, which is referring to the rope's going to take care of Jagger. And this is where the sheriff looks at him and says, who's going to tend to us? I think that's a really powerful line, because even the sheriff is like, this is not right. This is wrong. This is not going to happen. And we actually will find out more of why. But I like the idea that the sheriff is like, in his head, it's just doubt that he knows. This is wrong. We should not be killing this man. This man should not be dying. And I think that's a really important message in this story. Innocent men get killed all the time. So it's 9:20. We have 10 minutes to 9:30, and this is where we have the conversation between the editor, the sheriff, and the deputy again. The deputy, of course, is very pleased what's going on. He's very excited. So are the townspeople. And the editor and the sheriff are talking. That's when the editor asks the sheriff about the powder marks around the neck. And the sheriff finally confessed that he doesn't even know about the powder marks, nor did they ever do an autopsy of the body. That's how I knew, oh, this is great. And this is why you see all the guilt on the sheriff. And that's why maybe the town is turning all black, because of the hate, the evil, the lies. I think that's a really powerful thing to see in this. And the sheriff wants to do this to get re-elected. That's all he wants to do, is get re-elected as sheriff. Sometimes you pick your own self over others, even if it means something evil. It's an evil sacrifice. Sometimes you do that. That's the crazy thing about this whole thing. And it blows my mind how many layers the Twilight Zone actually has. Layers and layers and layers of things that you just don't really think about, and I love it. So we finally meet the Reverend, and the Reverend actually has a moment with the editor, and they talk for a few moments, but there's no substance there. They just talk about the blackness, the skies turning dark, so on and so forth. And I will say, like I said earlier, the Reverend is black in the 1950s. This actually does play a pretty good role into what's going to happen. So then the Reverend talks to Jagger for a couple minutes. Jagger and him do talk, which is important. The Reverend does tell him that Jagger deserves the peace of mind, essentially, because of what Jagger did for, not for himself, but for the others. Now, what does that mean? Who knows? The death of this other man, was he attacking the Reverend and other black men, or was he not? And was that why Jagger killed this man, to protect the Reverend and all these other black men? That's the thing that was so crazy, because it's about hate. And this is during the 1950s, so of course the race wars were a huge problem during the 1950s, and it speaks volumes about it. I always thought that was a really powerful thing about the Twilight Zone, is it splashes in these little social issues into such a good, deep story. Now, I'm a big fan of things like this, but I think modern times they push social issues way too far down our throats to the point where it's just so blatant, and that's like not the main focus. Again, this is not the main focus of it, but it's peeling the onion. That's the best way to say it. And that's when Jagger actually tells him, he's like, I don't need any quotes from the Bible. I don't need anything from this. And he's just accepted his fate. And that's when the crowd starts cheering, telling him, go up there, hurry up, get him killed, and all this crap, all these just malicious things. And that's where he turns around and yells at them, and he says, I'm not gonna give you the satisfaction of me saying I'm sorry. And then he turns around and looks at the noose. And there's a long moment of him staring at that noose, knowing death is there. He's going to die. No one can save him. Not even God himself is going to save him from this. He knows he is going to die. That's when Jagger's about to get hung, and the Reverend asks him one more time if he thinks he's guilty. And Jagger sits there for a moment, not saying anything, and then he says, he's guilty. And the Reverend turns back and looks at the crowd and says, he's guilty. And everyone else immediately agrees. And that's when Jagger says it's the majority that believes it. That's why. And that's a thing to really think about, because even today, it's this mob mentality of moment, even if information is not fully out, people will immediately pick sides, and usually who is the vast majority of the side is going to win. For this, for example, Jagger is in the minority of this versus the whole town, even the deputies on the majority side of this killing. Do we even know the full story of this? No, but the Reverend knows the full story of it, and he even accepts that it's the majority that is going to let this man die, even though we know why he did what he did. And that's when Jagger gets hung. And the deputy then asks the Reverend, have you seen the light? Have you really seen the light? And the Reverend turns and looks at him. Have you? The deputy just walks away, and the whole atmosphere of this death just pillows around everybody, where you don't recognize the atmosphere of what actually happened. All these people just witness a man die. And there's no remorse, there's no happiness, there's no nothing. Moments ago, everyone was so happy. Now they're all like, wow, this man's dead. And this is the Reverend does probably the best monologue in the whole entire thing. He says, have any of you, in all this darkness, is there anybody who can make out the truth? He hated and he killed, and now he dies. And you hated, and you killed, and there's not one of you who isn't doomed. When he said that line, he immediately pans right to the sheriff, and the sheriff's sweating. Like, he accepts that doom is upon them immediately. And he continues going, saying, do you know why it's dark? Do you know why it's night all around us? Do you know what the blackness is? It's the hate he felt, the hate you felt, the hate all of us feel. And there's just too much of it. There's just too much. And so we had to vomit it out. And now it's coming up all around us and choking us. So much hate, so much miserable hate. And after this powerful monologue, I thought this was just really good. There's two reasons why it's good. For one, again, he's black in the 1950s and he's talking down to all these white people. That's, for one, a really powerful thing, especially because of the hate towards whites versus blacks during the 1950s. That already plays such a big key role in it. Also, he's talking about how there's so much hate towards a man getting murdered. Now, does this man actually deserve to get murdered? Maybe. But he immediately was getting executed for killing somebody that he might not actually have killed. That's the other thing. The hate, the nastiness of every single thing that's going on in just this room, this area, this town, finally starts growing, and it gets darker, and you can see it on everyone's faces. Dark shadows are covering everyone's faces. Everyone even mentions it. I think that's just a really powerful message in this episode. And that's when we get to back to the police station, and the deputy was like, it's just fog out there. It's just fog, right, Sheriff? He already doubts himself, even though he just claimed that he thinks it's just fog that's passing over. And the sheriff doesn't even know. And the editor says, the only person that will know is God. God will only know. And that's when we go to the radio, and the radio starts slowly talking about cities slowly getting covered in darkness. And that's when Rod Serling monologues about the hate. And if I can, unless YouTube strikes me or something, I'm going to put it at the end of this because it's really, really good. But in general, though, I think this is a really powerful episode of the Twilight Zone. I always thought the Twilight Zone was one of those things that does do a lot of messaging in it, but in such a good way that really make you think about things. And just a story of individualism and a story of just these weird times that people do of humanity and about hate. That's what this whole thing is about. This whole entire episode is about hate, nothing else. It's only about hate. And that's what I really like about it. I think the story is so well written that Rod Serling himself wrote this whole episode, and he decided to write about hate, and it showed immediately on the first scene of Sheriff Charlie's wife. She is the one that implemented hate immediately, and that's why the town turned black, and that's why hate spread across the world so fast. I just think it was a really powerful thing, and I really like this episode. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I saw a random post on Instagram called the title of this, and I was like, whoa. So I decided to watch it, and I'm so happy I have. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. Have you guys seen this episode of the Twilight Zone? If you haven't, let me know. If you watched any episodes of the Twilight Zone, you should let me know and tell me which ones I should check out next. And of course, you know, the sky starts turning dark. I think everyone needs to just put some love out there. Maybe that'll help. See you guys in the next video.
It's known as hate. Not a virus, not a microbe, not a germ, but a sickness nonetheless. Highly contagious, deadly in its effects. Don't look for it in the Twilight Zone. Look for it in the mirror. Look for it before the light goes out altogether.